I'm Tim, the brand weaver, and this is Branding for Breweries, the podcast that helps you grow your brewery, build a better brand, and connect with more drinkers. Each week, I'm joined by the brightest minds in the beer world, sharing practical tips to help your brewery stand out and sell more beer. Let's get stuck in. What up, 24-hour party people? 'Tis I, Tim the Brand Weaver, and you are listening to Branding for Breweries, the show, as the intro says, that brings the brightest minds from around the beer world to your earballs, eyeballs, and any other balls that you want to bring it to help your brewery thrive, survive, and do incredible things. And today, we're going to be talking about sales. And I don't know much about sales, which is why I'm glad we've got someone who does know about sales talking to us. Not only is it someone who knows about sales, it is the guy, Mr. Peter Kennelly, as in Pillars, Siren, Ebria, a little stint at BrewDog as well. But we won't touch on much of that today because, you know, BrewDog's taking up the headlines as it stands. We don't want to hear about that. We want to hear about sales and really removing the guesswork from it. So that's enough of me running my mouth. Let's bring Peter in and let's have a good old chin wag. Peter, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks, man.
Funky fresh. Are you ready for a nice conversation with me, sir?
Always and forever.
Yeah, we've talked a couple of times. This is the first time we've done it on live, though, and recording it for prosperity. So I know it's going to be good. I've got a good feeling about this in my bones, my man. I suppose before we get stuck into the nuance of selling beer, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, Peter? In a true blind date fashion, what's your name and where'd you come from, love?
Yeah, so I'm currently the head of sales of Pillars Brewery, but I've been working in beer in the UK, originally from Dublin, but working in beer in the UK about 12 years now. Various different roles, as you mentioned in the intro, from managing bars at BrewDog and various other companies to selling beer with eBeer Trade, online market distributor, and then moving into more direct sales with Siren Craft Brew for just under 3 years. And then, I've been with Pillars now for the past 4 years. And absolutely loving it.
Good stuff, man. And of course, you and I, we've spoken a lot. We've had a good background conversation about your kind of approach to sales and how you do it with Pillars. But hopefully today we're going to create a bit of a framework that other people will find beneficial and just a couple of topics for them to go, interesting. I might look into that more. And I think the best place for us to start is, in the past, we've talked about setting a goal, but a goal which is like avoiding a vague goal. Why is a vague goal a real issue when it comes to like getting a sales process?
Yeah, vague goal is probably the worst thing you can do. Everything has to be structured by an objective in sales. And again, a caveat, I'm no sales expert, but I've been doing it a while, so maybe it's not completely full of nonsense. But yeah, setting yourself an objective is the most important part. I think vagueness is what kills sales, because not only do you not know yourself what you're trying to achieve, but also the person you're selling to will be confused. As in, people don't want vagueness when they're buying anything, really. You want to know, where's my money going to go and what's the best value for my money. So I want to know answers. I want to know what I'm getting. I want to know what the service is, whatever, and vagueness is just going to erode any of that trust. So yeah, I think vagueness, is oh god, it's a word I would never use, but it's a word that definitely I would try and eradicate from your sales process.
Have you got any example like vague goals that you've heard about in the past? Not necessarily had to hit yourself, but like what would be considered a vague goal?
Yeah, I think, well, you could look at it from a big picture and just go sell more beer. That's obviously what people in beer or in sales are trying to achieve, but it's very vague. Our industry is very nuanced in where you can sell beer, who can buy your beer. Well, it's the same thing. And you have to be structured. And I think, to come back to your question, it's an example of that is probably not understanding what the customer really wants and what they need, and trying just to kind of articulate certain beers that might not fit them, and that through that kind of indecision and maybe going through Oh, here's a good example. I always say, if you're selling beer, say for a distributor or a big group, it's kind of like open the trench coat jacket and you have 50 different watches hanging down, pick whatever's best. And for me, that's vague, it's in like, but why should I buy any of these things? Because what's better than that? You're just like throwing as much out there and seeing what sticks. And that's not going to build long-term relationships. That's not going to build trust. And I think that's going to, damage your sales process, really.
And I'd imagine, like, alongside the goals, because I've heard it when I worked with clients in the past, like, yeah, we want to grow, or we want to sell more beer, but from a strategic and marketing side of things. And then association as well. If we want to grow, we need more people to drink more of our beer. But a lot of the time, there's like a gatekeeper, that I call them, in the way that actually you have to convince them to stock your beer or pour your beer before it ever gets to the lips of the person actually drinking it. So how would you recommend people in breweries to go about targeting the right people to achieve their goals?
Yeah, it's a really, really important, because that comes back to your time, and time is valuable, especially now when budgets are tight and there might not be as many people in the team as before. So yeah, identifying it's like the key decision maker is so important, and you can only really do that by research and also by going in and asking questions. At Pillars, we're very specific in where we want to go, because we understand we're a very unique proposition for some businesses. And so we have to be, strategic and using research via LinkedIn, or even going into the pub and just asking questions. I think it's really important. Key decision maker is the person that's going to say, yes, I'll buy 500 kegs, I'll buy one case, whatever. And that's really important. But also really important is understanding that every person in the business is also a key decision maker, not directly for the salesperson, but also, they might be the kid that's, the person at work that has the best palate and is up to date with trends. They might not have the ability to buy the beer, but they can influence the buyer. So it's important to ensure that you're being respectful to everybody that you interact with, because you never know, they might get promoted, they might move to another place. So it's a combination of making sure you know where who the key decision maker is, but also don't piss anyone off, and just treat everyone with respect.
That's fair. I was going to say, like, are there any which could act as distractions? Those people that you start a conversation and go, actually, don't worry about that, or is that not really the case? You just have to be very considerate and courteous for all involved in the process.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think in any sales job, you have to have the ability to unpick and understand the power that someone has in front of you without sounding too big picturey. You have to know, say, for any business, be it beer or otherwise, you have to understand the power that the person has in front of you. And the only way you do that is by asking correct questions, the right questions, and being honest. Because ultimately, yeah, it can be a waste of time. Ultimately, it's like, yeah, I love your beer. Yeah, biggest fan ever. Great. Yeah, but I have no decision. This is not up to me. And then, so it's just being smart in where you spend your time and asking questions. Really, it's sales is not that complicated, but people like to make it very complicated.
Yeah, you've got to justify the effort that you're putting in. It's like, if the fish was that big, that's the challenge. So say a brewery has an idea of the kind of person they need to go and find and get in front of, and they've got themselves, actually, there's 50 of this kind of people that I need to be talking to in my area to achieve my goal. But we have limited time. We don't have a salesperson who's full-time committed to the role. How do you recommend breweries like prioritize, like create their top 20 or their hit list from a bigger list?
Yeah, again, it's you got to understand your market. Like, you got to be the biggest nerds going. You got to know. You have to really be understanding of where people are going in any sense. If you're selling anything, you got to know who's selling the most cheese. I don't know, I always keep using cheese analogy. Who's selling the most shoes? You have to understand and know your market. I think I'm probably preaching to the converted if anyone's salesperson's doing that. But yeah, it's being super nerdy with your market, and that's through, again, asking questions, going online, and also just spending time out in your market is so valuable. Taking a step back, looking at going to a venue, obviously in my perspective, it's a pub, and just sitting there 10 minutes and just watching what's selling, who's buying what, look at the demographics, and then also take a walk along the busiest high street. Where's the busiest pub? What are they drinking? You go in there, have a look around, ask a few questions, and then you get a good sense of, okay, maybe this customer is worthwhile. Again, you have to be really, really patient and observant. Like, it's so important to observe your market, the market trends, but also, obviously we look at Guinness and it's taken off like a rocket ship. And so, you wonder why. You have to look at, why is it doing that? Who's selling the most, and where they're going, and where are these people coming from? And you have to understand it's not just sales, and it kind of touches in with what probably you're doing, is a lot more marketing and understanding the flow and the movements of certain demographics and where they're going. You look at Devonshire now, and you could probably do so many studies by just staring at the outside of Devonshire and understanding who the people are, what they're drinking, following, well, obviously not literally following them, but then seeing where they go next. And it's this kind of like almost experimental marketing. Again, I'm getting a bit off topic, but it's that could be any town across the UK. Where's the pub that most people are going to? Where are they going before that? Where are they going after that? And you just have to be observant, and you have to be patient and research driven to know where your time is going to be spent.
I get it. It sounds a little bit creepy. Where follow them, see what they're doing, look at what they're buying, put it in your notebook, make sure they don't make eye contact. But I get it. I suppose that is the actual environmental research that you're doing. Like you say, you sit in a place for 10 minutes and you really take a gauge on, okay, what are people drinking? Where are they going? Where have they been? What have they done? What about desk-based research? What are the things that people should be looking for? What are those kind of bits of information they need to be trying to tease out of a LinkedIn profile or a website that's really going to help them to make that choice to then go, yep, okay, now I need to go and spend 10 to 15 minutes in that venue?
Yeah, it's obviously we're in an industry where, a lot of our venues don't open until midday, and some don't even open until 4 p.m. So, what are you doing with that time? I spend a lot of time, as we probably know, trawling through LinkedIn, seeing what's opening. But also, speaking of openings, you got to immerse yourself in your industry's press. I'm sure my wife works in marketing, and there's so much marketing press, and you have to know who's moving where, what company has the most budget for the X campaign, and they put feeders there. You just have to literally have your finger on the pulse of what's happening. And the only way you can do that is by trawling through the internet, following the right people, following the right press, following the right trade press, and just getting a real good understanding of your market. Because I absolutely adore pubs. I adore Pillars. I love selling beer. And so for me, it's second nature to just know what the news is and what's going on. But, it might not be if you've got kids and a dog and stuff like that, but just make sure that you're searching and in kind of taking in embedding yourself in the right information that's coming into the trade press, really. Yeah,
just being a sponge for it all. So it's kind of, knowing the market. It makes perfect sense. I get. So a minute ago, you rightly mentioned, pubs don't open till 12. They don't open till 4. But your target drinkers are going to be in other places at that point, right? So there's more opportunities to raise awareness of your brand. It doesn't always have to be on a tap. Do you have any tips for kind of working that out and monitoring where your audience can be outside of the normal pub time?
Yeah, well, maybe it comes back to my creepy following people anecdote that I don't actually do, but
you said it now. It's live. It's recorded.
People are looking over their shoulders. Just again, it's coming down to understanding your demographic, your target market, be it in beer or otherwise, and understanding where are they spending their time and their money, more importantly, I guess, from a sales point of view. So, understanding where are they going for coffee, where are they going for lunch, where are they going for restaurants, where can I get eyes on brand, albeit maybe I'm not going to sell 100 pints during lunch. Some places do, some places don't, but it's all about these touch points of your brand and where they can be, which is really important for any business, really, because certain brands can sell their product from 9 a.m. to 12 or 12 a.m., all 24 hours a day. Obviously, beer is a little bit different, but, it doesn't mean people can't see it. So you have to be smart in where, again, you're approaching your customers or your prospects in a sense of, okay, yeah, I might not sell a lot of beer here, but I can definitely, they'll put it at the front of the shelf while people are getting their coffee or what, So it's about where can I get eyes on brand when I can't sell, really.
So, and to me, that sounds like that's where sales and marketing really overlap. Like you say, you've got someone going for their morning coffee. Okay, this coffee bar isn't going to be stocking bottles of Pillars or any other kind of beer at the time, but there might be a really good bit of real estate in terms of like a bus stop poster nearby that you could be leveraging to get that awareness. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I guess I've never worked in kind of out of home marketing, but yeah, it's again, it's understanding the journey that your customer is going to be taking literally and figuratively. So yeah, identifying. Yeah, it all comes back to your demographic, I guess, and that probably you might touch on it later. Are you a brand or a business that's going to sell to everybody? Just everybody needs socks, whatever, but not everybody's going to be drinking premium lager as much as we'd like them to. It's going in the right direction, thankfully, but I would love if every single person would drink Pillars, but you have to be realistic in who your demographic is, and okay, if you identify that, then understand your customer more than you understand yourself and your business, because if you understand them, then you can sell to them, because you know what they want, what they don't want, what they like, what they don't like, what makes them feel more valued and more seen. And it's taking a bit of a step back and more of a esoteric look to what your buyer is, rather than just a number on a spreadsheet.
And on that comment of number on a spreadsheet, I've spoken to salespeople before that they pull up the spreadsheet. It's like, yeah, we've got a day on the road, pull up the spreadsheet. We can get to 20 different venues in one day. Boom, off we go. Is that what you'd recommend? Is that the right approach when you're kind of like getting feet on the ground?
Yeah, it's so dependent on your business. I'm sure lots of people who'll be viewing this or know your stuff. 100 different breweries, they can sell beer in 100 different ways, and that's fine, and that's great. We have a very systematic, strategic approach at Pillars, and it's working for us, thankfully, mainly because the beer is fucking delicious, and that is a real handy thing to have in the back pocket. But I think ultimately it depends on your strategy and what you want to do. So and what you want to achieve. Do you want to achieve high rate of sale in I don't know, music venues or events and festivals? Then you go and you target these people. Or do you want to be in all the pubs? Yeah, great. How long do you want to be on the pubs? Do you want to build long-term relationships, or you just want to get that beer out the door because you've got a tank that needs emptying? It's all very dependent on your situation. Obviously, the end goal is to sell more beer. But I think what people probably should be more conscious of now is the end goal is to be sustainable financially and literally. And what is the strategy that's going to help us achieve that? Is that, going to 20 pubs that are going to buy 2 kegs, and then you'll see them in another 2 months when you go there? If that's your strategy and that's what you need to do, that's fine. But sometimes maybe less is more.
Yo, I just want to take a second out of Branding for Breweries to make you aware of something. For those of you who don't know, outside of hosting Branding for Breweries, writing the book Branding for Breweries, I also provide independent breweries with hands-on support with their branding, design, and marketing. In fact, it's even better than that, because it's not just me, it's a whole bunch of awesome independent brewery folks who are dedicated to doing the very best for each and every independent brewery. The team have worked with some incredible breweries like Northern Monk, Osset, Brains, Pillars, all over the globe, and gaining results like doubling revenue, winning Rebrand of the Year, even gaining over 7 million views on the TikTok channel. So if you're looking to level up your brewery's branding and marketing this year, drop us a message over at www.thebrandweavercollective.com, and a member of the team will get back to you and we can have a chat. Now, back to the show.
So if we take a moment to reflect then, so we talked about having a solid goal, like having something which is really measurable versus the vague, then knowing who that person is to help you achieve that goal, understanding, doing your creepy, I'm just going to stop referring to the creepy following people around thing, but it's stuck now. Knowing about that person, knowing them, like you say, inside out, knowing them better than you do, so you know their movements and where the right place is to get in front of them, to ultimately then, you're leading up to having that conversation, aren't you? Right? You've caught their attention. You're now going to have the opportunity to spend 5-10 minutes to them chatting about your beer and, you know, trying to convince them that this is the best beer in the world. Hopefully it is. Who knows? When you're in that meeting, what are the things that they really need to have in their back pocket, and what do they need to be doing during that conversation to really give them the best chance of kind of sealing the deal?
That's the magic question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the biggest mistake a lot of salespeople make, which is very ironic of me saying that while I'm on a podcast, is talking. It's just shut the fuck up. I'm not saying that to you, don't worry.
That's fine. I'll just sit there. Crack on.
That's the most important thing when you get to a meeting. When you have some dedicated face-to-face time with your buyer, it's just ask a question and shut up. You know, I think we're lucky. Lucky maybe is a bit of a loose term, but at Pillars, it's very fortunate that we understand what our customers want, and they want to make more money 9 times out of 10. You know, this is what capitalism is. This is what business is. And ultimately, I understand how we can help them do that. And I build all that information and ask all the right questions. And then ultimately, we provide them with a product that can help them do that, because it's delicious and people love the brand and they want to drink more of it. So people drinking more of your beer means you're going to sell more beer, which means you're going to make more money. You know, it's a very simple system in place, but to get there is not so simple. And I think you have to just listen to your customers' needs and wants and understand if you can help them do that. And, you know, I say no to a lot of customers. We don't want to work with everybody. We have to be selective because our brand and product is important to us. Well, it's actually everything to us, really, because if someone has a bad pint of Pillars, and then they might tell their mate they have a bad pint of Pillars, and you know how information can spread. Fortunately, the brewers are amazing, and that's very rare that happens. So, but we got to make sure that we're not going to be pouring our beer at a venue that cleans their lines like once a millennium. Mm. So you have to qualify it and make sure. And the only way you can do that is understanding. You know, help me understand what your line cleaning process is like. Oh, well, we've got this cool system installed by X brewery, and it means we don't have to clean the lines for every 6 weeks. I'm like, oh, great, that's great. And then in my head, I'm like, get out. You know, it's like, it's just not that their system is wrong. It's just obviously our beer is not made for that. You know, we don't pasteurize. Our beer is quality based. It's not heavily filtered. So, but if you don't ask the right questions, you could then, and by asking the right questions and not listening to the answer, you could then sell your beer to them. And then you realize you go back there 2 weeks' time and you're like, why does my pale ale taste like absolute butter? And you're like, oh, well, I didn't understand their processes. I didn't understand what's important to business. What's important to business is getting all the money from the macro brewery. And then what your purpose as a smaller brewery might be just a bit of fun or something exciting for the customers. But it might be just one tap. So that means that everybody who's looking for your beer goes to that one tap, but they're having a bad experience of it. So you just have to make sure that you're understanding the customer's needs and wants, and why do you want our beer? It's the biggest question I always ask.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. You say, yeah, understanding your perfect target market is essential, but actually on the flip side, knowing, okay, well, these are some of the strict no-nos, like our red flags for people that we don't want to work with, can be equally damaging for the brand. Like, I've spoken to the guys who run Untapped, and you can see like the metrics and the measurements of kind of like, yeah, bad quality pints and stuff, and it just drives sales in that area down. So I think, yeah, that's a really valid point. And again, the idea of asking questions, I was talking to James from Morrison's, and he said a lot of the time when you get a brewery coming in pitching for space on the shelves, that they clearly have this script memorized in their head, and you know, they're coming out and they wax lyrical about how amazing their beers are and their brand story and everything in the background. And then at the very end, they're like, yeah, but how can you help us? And I think flipping that script makes so much sense. And personally, you feel exactly the same. If you're having a conversation with someone who's trying to pitch something to you, it's like, well, don't give me a blanket email. Like, tell me what you know and why it works for me. Sound and logical advice. I love it. You did talk about obviously kind of like measuring and monitoring it off the back of it and going, well, you mentioned like coming back and it tastes like butter, which is not the best measurement by any means, but what are the things that you should be tracking or you look to track when it comes to conversations and things going really well? And what are those red flag moments where you're like, we need to dive in or maybe divert path, as it were?
Yeah, I think it's not being afraid to ask the hard questions. You know, again, it kind of comes back to what I talked about. It's like what does our beer mean to you, or what does our product mean to you? You know, and each customer can have 10 different answers. You know, because more often than not, customers will have made the decision most likely before they even meet you what they want to do with you, and by you I mean your brand, your product. I've got a space in the shelf, and this is what I expect the product to be. So they're going into the meeting with bias, with the conception of how I think this is going to go. And if you're not asking the right questions, it's just going to go all their way. Because buyers have power, we can't deny it, or at least I don't know if there's any buyers watching this. They have the illusion of power, you know, and we're getting into kind of
kick off at this point, like shaking fist.
Hey buyers, I love you all. No, it's important. I'm not saying sales is a balance of power dynamics, but there's definitely an element of understanding where a conversation is going and ultimately where you want it to go. And what again comes back to your very first question is like, what is the end objective of this meeting? You know, what do we want to do? Is it to put 10 of our beers on your shelf? Okay, well, how do we get there? But my objective is sometimes very often a different objective to the buyer, and that's absolutely fine, because if it was the same thing, it'd be fucking easy. But we have to understand, okay, well, what's your objective? What's my objective? How can we get here in the middle? Or what's your current situation? What's your ideal situation, and how can we get there? So, yeah, I've forgotten the original question, but it's
the data to track, the stuff that you should be watching and monitoring with it all.
Yeah, and the only way you can do that is by setting then, you know, follow-up goals and go like, well, what does the success look like? Well, I want to get a new beer on this tap and I want to sell 6 kegs a week. Okay, what were you doing before? Well, if you don't ask that question, they could have been selling 1 keg a week, and then the onus of this tap is then on you and your beer. And they go, well, you didn't sell 6 kegs a week, so it's a failure. You might be selling 3 kegs, 150% increase, but in their brain, this is and you have to understand, okay, well, why do you think it's going to be 6 kegs? Like, if it was 1 keg previously, you know, and just being a bit smarter, just asking a lot of questions. Because buyers will have an idea in their head of what success looks like for them, which is great. But often than not, that's driven by another person in the business that goes, well, I need you to do X for me in order to justify your salary and your position. So you need to go out and do that. And so go find the people that are going to do that with you. And the only ones that are going to do that are collaboratively, rather than them driving the whole situation. I want to get 6 kegs. You're going to make me do 6 kegs. And then, okay, well, this is very much a one-sided relationship. So just understanding what they want and how they think it's going to go. And then having the intelligence or the data or the case studies to go, well, actually, I don't know. Or actually, that sounds fantastic. We've done that down the road and we're going to do that with you. Don't worry. It's all going to be great. But you just have to ask the right questions.
Is there ever the right time to be like going, yep, we can do that? I've had experience of working with salespeople in the past, and you feel like you're given a hospital pass at the end of the day for the person trying to deliver it at the end. It's like, because they've gone, yeah, we can do that. We can definitely hit that, because it's all about getting the sale. And I know a lot of the time that can be detrimental to whatever you're delivering and the product and everything. But on occasion, is there a right time to go, yes, we can do it?
Oh, definitely. And the thing is, sales is built on trust, you know, which sales and trust in the same sentence is often a bit of an oxymoron, but that's what good salespeople do is they earn trust, and you have to be honest with your customer. Obviously, there's times when everyone's desperate and, you know, we just want to sell beer, and that's absolutely fine. We have to pay the bills. We have to pay our suppliers, and that's completely fine. But you know, for example, if we're looking at Pillars, we've built the case study and the examples to go, okay, yeah, absolutely, we can do that. You know, I think we can hit those volumes because, as I said, we've got this pub that's doing the same thing. I don't see why we can't replicate that with you. So, you have to be trustworthy, because people want to work with trustworthy people long term. And that's what we're doing at Pillars. We're helping people sell more beer long term, building a brand with them and going with them. This is collaboration now. We're going in parallel lines rather than perpendicular lines. We're going to the same goal here. But that's only done through trust, through identifying what you want. Can I help you do that? Yeah. And then sometimes you even get more trust by saying, no, I don't think you're right there. And then people go, oh, okay, well, this person, well, why not? You're kind of poking and prodding them to get their back up, which is in a certain way is good. Obviously, we want to make people relaxed and understand their business, but people respect when people are honest, and especially when it goes. I've had customers that go, I want to be in, all your pubs. I'll go, well, we're not going to be in all your pubs. That's just silly. Obviously, hopefully that conversation is going to change in a few years' time when it does make sense. But it's like, it doesn't make sense for us right now. Like, let's focus on X, Y, Z and build rate of sale, build volume, and then we'll go from there. But like, some people will just try and grab every bit of volume, which is super important. But for us, you have to be sustained. You have to be trustworthy. You have to be smart. And having the ability to know when to say yes is also, if not more important, or sorry, having the ability to know when to say no is often more, but because ultimately it's who wins when you stop selling beer that you think you're going to sell. No.
And I'm reflecting on that, and I've seen it more and more in my own role, where people aren't looking for someone just to be the yes man. It's almost that consultative piece. I appreciate my role's a little bit different to selling beer, but there's more of an investment where you're like, I don't know if that's actually going to work. Like, if you're really trying to achieve this, that have you considered X, Y, and Z? And being that helpful advisor can probably go a long way to, like you say, build that trust.
Oh, you said the perfect word. It's consultative, but it takes a while to get there. And you only become a consultative salesperson within the customer when you build that trust. Fortunately, at Pillars, we're seen as the lager people. So people put on a Pillars Pilsner, for example, and they go, I'm looking for another lager. What do you think? And obviously, we want it to be a Pillars as well, but obviously, we have to be realistic. And we go, well, actually, I think this lager is great. Or I think, and they go, what do you think about this lager? And I go, well, what are you trying to achieve? And they're like, I'm trying to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. Or, maybe this doesn't make sense for you and your demographic. But you only get to that stage by building trust, by showcasing that your product can help them make more money or whatever they want to do. And then you get to the point where, maybe you're more than sales. You're helping them build a brand, build a market, because they trust you, and they know that ultimately, if you consult on them to make a decision that will bring more people into the business, it's a win-win. And so, getting to that stage is really difficult. But when you have a strong product, you build a good relationship with them, they'll let you in. And once you're in, it's the dream. Because
it's the dream, man.
You're not selling anymore.
So let's try and make this nice and applicable, because I've spoken to brewery owners. They don't have a salesperson. They don't have the budget to employ someone to do it 5 days a week, and it's their only role. They might have to carve out time to try and do it of a week in the minute hours that they have. Like, if you're talking to someone like that, the idea of going into places and researching and sitting down for 10, 15 minutes and seeing where people go, that probably feels like a real stretch for them to achieve. What can they be doing to start seeing some kind of shift in movement when they have such limited time on their hands?
That's such a good question. I guess I should caveat that I'm very lucky that I've got the support of the brewery of Pillars to do what I do. And you're so right. Not everybody did it. Like, that's what Omar and Gav and Eamon, all the guys, when they founded Pillars, were doing. They were like brewing and then going out, literally filling growlers, going to the latest pub and going, please buy our beer. And they did the hard graft, and they've done the hard work so they can employ a salesperson. So it's such a good question. I think it's letting your brand and your product do the work as much as possible when you can't do it, and it comes probably back to what we talked about a lot. It's being selective of where your beer is going, and being strategic and understanding, where's the next 3-4 customers that I can really see good investment in terms of not only sales, but also eyes on brand and being smart that, okay, I don't have 5 hours a week to go and sell, but maybe I'll dedicate 5 hours. Where am I going? And then it comes back, are you doing everything sales processes, but it's in a very short, minute space of time. So you have to still do the research. You still have to go out and ask the right questions, but you have to be probably even more focused in the research than anywhere else, because, like there's still, and there's going to be people watching this that go, yeah, I'm going to rock up to the Dog and Duck tomorrow, and they forgot to check the fucking opening times, and you're there and you're sitting outside a pub and you're like, I'm the biggest, and I do it all the time. I'm like, I'm the fucking biggest idiot in the world. What am I doing? Why didn't I not look at, so it's even everybody makes those mistakes, but you learn from them. But it's just all about doing the right research and understanding, okay, if I get into this pub here, then I can maybe aim for this restaurant, or is it part of this group? And it's all about understanding where can I get the most for minimum time. And that's all through, brand positioning, research, building relationships. And then obviously if you're a founder, just be honest, I guess, and go, like, fuck, it's great to meet you. I got to go back because I've got an FV that is about to a lager is about to turn into 10%. So I need to crack on. How can we get this sorted? Just be honest and just say, and people will respect. You got to respect your time as much as theirs.
Yeah, I think I could see myself in that position. And if a brewer going, yeah, I got to wrap this up because I've got to get back. You're like, yeah, hats off to you, mate. Like, at least you care about the product and you've got to do it. So like I say, the research aspect is so very important. So would you be advising, say there is the brewer there who's found the 5 hours a week, whatever it is, like it's more valuable to go, don't hit the road for 1 week, use that 5 hours to get your research aligned, and then go back out with a more informed kind of direction and choice in what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I'm coming from a London perspective. We're very lucky. I could walk down a street and have 10 pubs. If you're based in somewhere more rural, you have to jump in the car, and you can hit. It's going to take you a whole day to hit 5 pubs. So it is very geographically specific. But I think, yeah, you put as much work in before you go out on the road as possible. It will really do you dividends. You route the contacts, the people. Obviously jump on the phone if you can, but you have to be. Yeah, if you can't just go out there blind anymore. The market's too competitive. There's the customer is so specific in what they want, so you have to make sure that you're ready for all different objections as well. That's really important. Understanding why people wouldn't buy your beer is just as important as understanding why they will buy your beer. So make sure you're going out, do a bit of market research with your current customers. Go down and sit down with them. Or here's a pint. I'll buy you a pint. Why do you actually buy our beer? Like, tell me. They're like, oh, because I really like you and your dog. It's like, really? Is that it? And they're like, yeah. I was like, oh fuck, that's not a good reason. But anyway, so it's like
the dog's coming out with me more.
Yeah, well, that's it. You don't know till you know, and so I think don't disregard your current customers as well. Probably haven't touched on that a lot, but we're so lucky at Pillars that like our customers are our biggest fans, and so I need to. There's the dog. Don't eat no, he's gonna eat it. Peanut.
The joys of a life.
One second. It might be important. Peanut, leave it.
We're just going to pause a minute whilst Peter rescues whatever it is from his dog's mouth that has legged it out of the room that he's talking in right now. There he is.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay, mate.
He literally almost ate a passport the other day. I thought I put him in the door. But yeah, I think what I was saying is, yeah, we're so lucky at Pillars. Our customers are amazing, and we use them. Ask them a question, ask them, why do you work with us? And you really can learn so much more about the business than you think.
Yeah, and I suppose on the same conversation, you learn why they're not working with other people. Mm-hmm. Like, we had so and so come in, and they were giving it the big I am, or just weren't really picking up on what their offer was. And so you know what to double down on with your conversations, but equally what to avoid in many ways, which equally is valuable. Dude, yes. I'm glad that you managed to rescue whatever it was from your dog's mouth.
Yeah, it looks important. There was a junk mail, didn't make it, but that's fine.
Yes. Dude, let's wrap this up. Where can people chat to you? Obviously, I know that you're doing a lot on LinkedIn, so probably coming to find you on LinkedIn is one place, but is there anywhere else that people can check out what you're doing, find out more about Pillars as well?
Yeah, as you say, LinkedIn's probably the best place. Myself, actually, I followed in the footsteps of Gav, our CEO, who you had on. He just kind of has like an open door policy if you want to sit down and have a chat with him at the brewery or have a coffee. And I think that was such a great idea. And so anyone just DM me if you want to chat. I've chatted to a lot of people last year about Pillars, about sales. Does it sound really wanky if I said I just started a Substack? So I've started.
That's subjective, I think. Some people maybe, others are like, "Oh, he's a cool, trendy guy. Let's check him out."
So I've started kind of putting down my thoughts on the industry and pubs in general, because I love pubs. I love this industry. So, but yeah, probably the best way is LinkedIn. Come to the brewery, try our beer, and I'll sit down. We'll have a chat about anything. I think being collaborative in this industry is so important, especially when we're all kind of fighting the same 4 big bosses or 5 big bosses. So yeah, just reach out. I'm very nice, I think.
Indeed you are, mate. It's been a fun old chinwag. I liked it. Thank you, mate. Once again, really, really helpful. Wonderful to get that kind of framework and structure out of your brain for other people to think about as well. And I'm sure it's got a lot of brains ticking during this chat. Everyone who's taken the time to listen in, thank you so much, as always. This has been Branding for Breweries. You all rock, and I'll see you at the next episode. Rock on. That's a wrap on this week's episode of Branding for Breweries. If you got something great from it, hit follow, like, and subscribe on your favorite streaming app. Or even better, leave a review, share it with your brewery pals, or get in touch, because I want to chat to you. Rock on!